All right, and this is the intro before the intro. This is me delivering my intro while I wait until I'm good to
Yeah, in
deliver
a
my
couple weeks is
actual
actually going to be
intro.
you getting a buzz cut for the declaration that you made around this time last season, about almost 365 days ago, that
Listen,
you
we're not
haven't
there
lived up to
yet.
the word.
We're not there yet. All right. Wait, am I good now? I'm good now, right?
You should be great.
Okay, so I'm good though. I can start the intro.
Yes. Yes.
All right, and welcome back to the Paisan Sports Podcast. Dante De Placido, joined as always by Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports. So I've got to ask, what's the deal with Zach's fantasy team? Last week had a chance to beat me. He had Justin Jefferson. It was Monday Night Football. He just needed a big game from Justin Jefferson. It's Justin Jefferson. He didn't do it. They lost. Dante beat him. 1-0 on the season. What's going on?
Screw you, dude. I thought you were talking about like my team this week too, and I'm like, I didn't even really keep tabs. I got five
I don't
leagues,
know what's going on
but
with your team this week.
I thought my
But
team was good this week. But
that's also not even in reference to the Elevation League. That's the other league that we're in.
yeah, I was going to say in the Elevation League, I thought I did good today, and then now you're making me second guess myself. Actually, no, it looks like I might be going to 0-2. Actually, no, because I have Bijan right now. I got Bijan down 12, but he still has Nico Collins, so I need Bijan to go like straight up like 8th overall Bijan for me to have a chance. But yeah, the other league, honestly, if we're gonna be completely transparent here, that's probably the other league that we're in together is probably the league I've put the least amount of effort into so far. But with that being said, I usually put top 3 effort of anybody in the entire leagues that I'm in that specific league. So I'm still trying to do my best, but I'm still getting used to the sleeper app itself. So
yeah, so am I right now. So in both
like
leagues,
it's almost to the point where before, like I have 2 leagues that I have on sleeper this year, but I'm so used to all my teams being on ESPN that like sometimes I even forget to check the sleeper, and then like I'll remember that I have 5 fantasy teams now, one more than I did in the previous year, so I get back to it. But yeah,
five's a lot. I could never manage that many. But right now in both leagues, I am up, but projected to lose by a little bit, with the other team still having quite a few players left to play. So it really could go either way in both leagues. I might be
who's
able to
somebody fantasy football wise? Give me 2 guys that are trending upward and 2 guys trending downward that you've like noticed. Not even have to be on your team, just in general of fantasy football. Because I have a couple guys.
I have not. I've been so locked in on betting the first 2 weeks of the season that I have not really been paying that
Well, if
much
you're betting player
attention
props,
to.
you should know like the stats
Well,
of the
I
players.
mean, well, I know last week for me, Marvin Harrison did really well because that was fantasy and one of my bets. Josh Allen did great in one of my bets last week. So I mean that was, but obviously Josh Allen's going to be a great fantasy player. One player I will say, another guy that's on one of my teams, Christian McCaffrey. I feel like he was slept on going into the season, coming off the big injury last
I don't know if I
year.
would say that. I
But
mean, dude,
people forgot how good he is when he's on the field.
I used to have like the significant calf injury, and it was like sneaking up at the beginning of this season, but he ended up playing
Yeah.
both games so far. But I mean, he was still going sometimes 3, 4 in every fantasy league. And I know he was the guy 2 years ago, and then Saquon took the reins. But for a guy his age with like the lingering calf injuries that like really make it spooky if he's on your team, I mean, he's still going top 5 in every single fantasy draft. So I don't know if he'd be slept on. But since you gave the positive outlook on it, I just want to mention some guys that have not really been performing at all so far. One guy's Isaiah Pacheco, a guy that the Eagles faced today, and he just has really not done too much in fantasy yet. He's like a guy that was like going somewhere like 5th to 8th round range, depending on how you feel about him. But being next to the second greatest player in the history of the sport definitely helps his odds with you taking him, just knowing the talent of that offense and him being seen as the guy. But Kareem Hunt seems like he's still involved. They've been using Brashard Smith as their kick returner, and we saw a little bit of him today, not so much more on offense. But when they needed a tough yard, it was either Patrick Mahomes today for the Chiefs or it was Kareem Hunt on that fullback dive out of the offset eye that they ran on 4th down to get that first down. But outside of that, I mean, Isaiah Pacheco put up 3 points, and let me see what he did last week. Last week, he had 4.8 points. So he has a total of just over 8 fantasy points this season in fantasy football for a guy that was getting drafted in like the 3rd round after his rookie season. Violent guy as well.
Yeah, so no, that's definitely a good one. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of any players underperforming. I mean, I would say I don't know what kind of fantasy points he put up last week with the 2 rushing touchdowns, but I'd imagine thus far Jalen Hurts has been a bit of a fantasy disappointment.
Well, he's still scoring those touchdowns, so yeah. But I mean, guess to the scale that he's getting drafted at.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's like the top 3 QB in everyone's draft.
Yeah, it's still early in the season, so you see guys like all over the place fluctuating around. It's not that he's been doing bad, not that he's doing bad, but somebody that's like not going to like the scale of what people think his ceiling could be, but it's still obviously so early in the season. But Stephon Diggs has 12 targets on the season, 6 catches last week, 57 yards, only 11.7 points, and then 7.2 points today with 4 catches for 32. He hasn't found the end zone yet. He's getting targets, but for the contract they gave him, I know he's coming off the big injury, and for the guy that he used to be with Josh Allen, and we saw it flash a little bit with the Texans last year for the time that he did play, I feel like Stephon Diggs could be doing a little bit more than the production he's put out there so far this season. But he's not as bad. I mean, A.J. Brown has, 6 catches for 34 yards this entire season, so that's very interesting.
He's off to a very slow start.
Yeah, so just real quickly, just an overview of fantasy football. We could go a lot deeper, but we don't have all the time because we got to mix in all the Philadelphia sports for you guys. So, with that being said, let's where this conversation.
The Flyers.
Yeah, let's talk about the Flyers. Madke Michkov. How do we feel about him?
He plays hockey. He goes out there.
He's on skates. He puts him on the ice. He goes out on the ice and he's on skates he hits people into the board sometimes. And yeah, it's a great time.
Like they say, let's do that hockey. You know what I'm saying? So and then the Philadelphia Union. Let's
wait. Hold on 1 second before we actually get serious and talk about the Eagles. Dante, you have one guess. No Google right now. You have 5 seconds to answer this question. Who will be the Flyers' opening night goalie for the 2025 season?
I don't
1,
know.
2.
I don't know. I don't even have
3,
to take the 5 seconds because I
4,
don't know.
5. I know his last name. I don't know the first name. Erickson. He was their former backup goalie, but that's a story for another day. But
the only Flyers goalies I can name are Carter Hart. And
he hasn't been on the team in 2.5 years.
I know. Well, I'm talking about just in general. Is Carter Hart and Ninemaki from back in the day. That's all I can name for you.
Yeah. And they really haven't had too many memorable goals. But let's just completely erase the Flyers talk and wasting that 95 seconds of life that we just did right there for being 2 non-Flyers guys, even though my dad is a Flyers guy. But Eagles, Chiefs, same score as the regular season game ended last year. Similar events in the game. We had a red zone pick. Remember when the only play ever that I'm drawing a blank on his name, the safety Kevin Byard, now of the Bears, made in his Eagles career
with the
Chiefs. What happened?
I did not know Kevin Byard was still in the league.
Yeah, he's just about his business, and I'm pretty sure he's a captain on the Bears too, if I believe correctly.
Really?
But only thing that he ever did in an Eagles uniform, that interception in the red zone last year versus Mahomes, and another safety.
That was 2 years ago. That was 2023.
Are you positive?
I'm 100% positive.
Yeah, so you are correct about that. You are correct about that. Okay. Was that the game? Now I'm just drawing a blank my entire brain just went into an absolute whirlwind, not using these search engines to look up some Eagles info that I should know. So regular season last year, Chiefs Eagles, they played last year in the regular season or no?
No, that was
Okay,
2023.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's still hard to
That was
mesh all
when
those
they
years
beat.
together
That
with
was
the two
when they.
Super Bowls and all that stuff.
That was when they beat the Chiefs. I don't remember if it was the week later or 2 weeks later, but they also
It was
beat
the primetime
the.
game when Marquez Valdez-Scantling dropped the ball, and it was 20-17. That was 2 years ago. Kevin Byard was on the field, picked the ball off in the red zone. Mahomes threw the ball to MVS. He misses 2017 at the end of the game. Kind of similar. The reason why I even mentioned that game, and then I got confused for a second, but the reason why I mentioned that game was because same score, obviously close in time period. I mean, in the past 2 years, the same score of a regular season game that they played each other. Last regular season, they played each other. And also, it was like Tyquan Thornton Mahomes missed Tyquan Thornton with that pass that should have been a touchdown. And then the ball doesn't lie, and he scores the touchdown when Q is getting over there in coverage, and he got beat. But more so, if we're going to talk about that play real quickly, I think Reed Blankenship actually got sucked in on a route in the middle of the field, and then Q had to wrap around him trying to get back there in coverage. I think that was the safety's responsibility. But with a guy like Thornton, he's so fast, he probably would have outran Blankenship anyway, regardless. So, but Eagles, Chiefs, what was a couple of your just like key point takeaways from the game? Because I felt like a lot of interesting stuff happened. A lot of stuff, it felt like last week, like the same stuff that went on in last week's game was kind of like the same kind of issues that the Eagles were having in this game. But then again, I mean,
I would say
we're playing against the best.
Offensively.
Yeah, real quickly. Then again, though, I'm not going to blame it. Like, I'm not trying to like harp on them and be hard on them. They're 2-0, and the Cowboys are a decent team, and the Chiefs are the best football team in the past 7 years of football.
Yeah, so like I said, offensively, I think it was a lot of the same issues. Now, defensively, I don't think a lot of the same things can be said. I think the pass rush looked a lot better this week than last week. I thought, granted, he had much easier assignments. I think Adoree Jackson looked a lot better this week. But I would also say,
but with the credit that we will give the pass rush, they're also credited for Mahomes running all over them or running circles around them in the first half, which completely happened, and they got embarrassed in the first half in that department. So we can't just like bring them all the way up because.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they did a much better job at generating pressure. And
they like in the moments where they actually had to hunker down and get pressure in big moments, they did do that. But the reason the Chiefs were in the game was because that's why Mahomes is the second best player of all time, because he will always.
But what I'm saying is, even if you're just looking at the first half, and you're saying, well, the defensive line didn't do a great job because Mahomes ran all over them, that can be said. But what I'm also saying is, they were generating more pressure. He was escaping that pressure and running, but at least the pressure was there, which could not have been said for last week. So either way, when you look at the whole game, I think they did a much better job at generating pressure.
Yeah, but all pass rush isn't good pass rush. If you're just going up the field,
but that's not what I'm arguing. I'm just saying they generated more pressure. That's simply what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you said he's just evading it. But there was a couple plays where it was clear they're literally not having gap integrity. They're rushing outside of the rush assignments, and that's why the holes are being opened. Also, some of those holes were being opened because of the man coverage. Vic was running way more man coverage than he usually did. And the pass rush also
man coverage last week too.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's very confident with his corners, especially Q, and just the matchup skill position wise. I mean, last week the Cowboys have better receivers than the Chiefs have, so I don't know if that played a part in it. But I felt like he felt really confident with the skill position matchups between the Eagles side to the Chiefs side, because on both sides of the ball, I mean, the Eagles dominated the Chiefs skill position player wise on offense and defense. I mean, the play that Smitty made on a considered top 5 cornerback in the entire league and Trent McDuffie, some of the plays that Saquon was just making where he was getting to the second level and he's only getting 5 to 6 yard runs, but he's stiff arming dudes, running them over. Just some of those plays, and especially on the defensive side of the ball as well, like Makuba. I mean, Travis Kelce drops that pass, and you can say all you want about, it's a drop pass, whatever, but it's also one thing to be in the right place at the right time. And it just seems like Andrew Makuba is always at the right place at the right time. And
Yeah.
that also how we talked about the pressure that they brought, like the pass rush and just the general pressure they were able to put on Mahomes when he wasn't able to flee the pocket. A couple of those were actually generated blitzes, which we don't see from Vic Fangio, but I feel like he felt comfortable being the former Broncos coach and how much he's seen Andy Reid over the years, that he won the matchup defensive coordinator to offensive coordinator wise, and that was the difference in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I want to talk about my key takeaways from this game, the first takeaway I was going to mention was Andrew Makuba. And even outside the interception, he was all over the ball today. And I think the biggest impact he had outside of that interception was on the 3rd and 1, or no, it wasn't 3rd and 1, but it was 3rd down, and the Chiefs player caught the ball close to the sticks, and Makuba just came flying up, seemingly out of nowhere. When the Chiefs player caught that ball, I forget who it was, but in the moment where he caught that ball, I thought he was going to take it and easily get the first down. And then Makuba just comes flying in out of nowhere and stops him short of the line to gain. So then they come out to go for it on 4th down. And one player who I want to get into next as my other takeaway, which is why I'm not saying his name just yet, makes the immediate impact. It was Makuba who made the initial impact on the play, who got to the ball carrier first. And then the second guy who I want to talk about next cleaned it up to cause the turnover on downs. And that was Zadarius Smith, the guy the Eagles signed after the Thursday night game last week, who I thought, like, as far as when you look at Eagles debuts during the season, like guys who were signed during the season and made their debut during the season, Zadarius Smith, that was one of the best I've seen in years as an Eagles fan. I feel like,
and Howie's just not messing around. He noticed that he needed to get a little uptick. Also, Josh Uche today had a pretty nice play as well later on in the game. But yeah, Zadarius Smith, it wasn't
he
really
had a great game.
Zadarius Smith, that play that you're referring to is in the run game. He was also a factor in the pass game. I mean, he was doing a little bit of both, where it seems like Nolan Smith really blew up that block on one of those 4th down plays to stop them. But Nolan Smith really isn't, being an undersized guy, he's not really seen as the best run defender. He's more so of a guy in space, where you saw a couple times where Mahomes tried to flee the pocket on Nolan Smith, and it's a whole different type of athleticism that you're dealing with, trying to flee the pocket with him breathing down, as opposed to a guy that's an extremely good pass rusher, but is like Aiden Hutchinson, who it could get off the ball, has way better pass rush moves than Nolan Smith. But athleticism-wise, Mahomes will probably be able to beat the edge on him, but you can't really do that with Nolan Smith. But he blew up that one block. But I thought both the Smiths on either side of the edge of the defense played extremely well. And Zadarius Smith, I mean, if you're like an Eagles fan, a little bit more casual, you're probably starting to ask yourself, who is number 52? You know what I mean? If you didn't know that signing, or you just, don't keep up.
I knew the signing. I didn't know what number he was. So the first time I saw him on the field, the question I asked is that Zadarius Smith? Because I see a guy on the field, I see a number I don't recognize, so I'm like, oh, that must be Zadarius Smith. But yeah, that was me at first, because I didn't know what number he chose after he signed here.
It's actually pretty crazy he was still available. He's not that old of a dude. He's 32. He had 9 sacks last year.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
and one of the best
like the Falcons, like
in the NFL.
Remember when, like, the Falcons, I think it was either last year or the year before, they traded for, like, Matthew Judon, and it just didn't work out at all? Like,
yeah,
I don't understand how a guy like Matthew Judon's getting more jobs than Zadarius Smith, like, had the opportunity.
Yeah, it's crazy he was still available, because that guy can still play, man. I think he's going to make a big impact on this defense. I thought going into the season, another pass rusher is something the Eagles really needed.
Also, specifically with Zadarius Smith, he played for 2 teams last year, and he played 9 and 8. So he played a full regular season slate of games, but split them pretty much evenly between 2 teams. And he had 5 sacks with the Cleveland Browns in 9 games and 4 with the Lions in 8 games. So it's like he just picks up where he left off, and he's just the same dude. It doesn't matter who he's playing for or where he's playing at. Like, he's just going to be that dude. So that was a huge pickup for the Eagles to get. I remember
Absolutely.
way back in the day when he first got drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, and he was just kind of slept on with all the guys that the Ravens already had, but he really blossomed into a player when he got into Green Bay. Even he was really good for the Ravens, and it just upticked with Green Bay. I mean, his first 2 seasons in Green Bay, he had 26 sacks in his first 2 seasons in Green Bay. So, I mean, he still has it, and he actually might able to be carve out a role where I'm trying to find the snap count. That's why I have my phone in my hand. I'm looking down because
Let
I
me see if
want
I can find it. Let me see if I can
I know
find
I
it.
know where to find it. I just didn't. I was trying to do a little
Let me see if
shortcut.
I can find that snap count.
I thought one of their guys would have, one of the Eagles beat reporters would have tweeted it by now, but they didn't. So
Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone.
actually,
posting it.
there is no. That's probably why, because for some reason, Pro Football Reference doesn't even have the game officially box scored yet, so there is no snap count
wow,
unless
yeah.
it's like a completely um, manually by man written down. But yeah, we'll figure that out. But I mean, Zaire Smith was pretty much, it felt like he was playing as much, almost as many snaps as Nolan Smith, just on the opposite side. And like we said, Azeez Ojulari didn't play last week, and we haven't really seen too much of him at all. We don't really have the biggest update on what's going on with him, but he was supposed to be the 24-year-old, about to be 25-year-old guy who's going to step in, and all that seems good. And yeah, come help this Super Bowl team, Super Bowl level team. But everything doesn't always play out the way it's supposed to. But it seems like they found a guy in Zadarius Smith that can really fill that role. And Jordan Davis also, you got to give Jordan Davis credit. Jordan Davis has been playing really well to start the season. Tony's been playing such like a significant uptick in snaps as well, especially now. It looked a little bit scary, not to bring up another topic and mix it in here, because we have to definitely isolate this topic, because it could be hopefully not serious, but it could lead to something. But Jalen Carter looked like he was a little bit banged up on the field, but gutting it out towards the end of the game, the way that he was holding his arm.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, hopefully he's fine. But I do have, I just saw one really interesting stat on Twitter I want to share. And there was another stat I wanted to share on today's podcast. The Eagles, over their last 19 games, have turned the ball over 8 times and have forced, get ready for this, 39 turnovers. That's 8 turnovers, 39 forced turnovers. That is an insane statistic.
Well, what do you think of it kind of dialed back because the broadcast was just warming up, but what do you think of was it the first or the second play of the game where Hurts steps up in the pocket and just drops the ball as he's running forward?
Yeah.
The only other time we really ever saw that was the Super Bowl.
Yeah, except this time they recovered
flashback.
it and they went on to win. But that brings me to my other stat I wanted to mention, and that is the Eagles have won 16 straight games that Jalen Hurts has started and finished. And
yeah, they're 17-1 his last 18 starts.
And in that span, he has 39 total touchdowns to just 4 turnovers. So, I mean, and that's the recipe for winning football games, is holding on to the ball, creating turnovers on defense.
And you saw exactly what they got into when they felt comfortable when they got the ball back. And it was so crazy. The Chiefs had just scored. They're at home. The Eagles were slight favorites to begin the game. And the Eagles, after the Chiefs scored to make it 20-17, the Eagles were still minus 1,600 on the money line, up by 3 points on the road.
That is pretty crazy. And you know what? The other thing I want to say, I think I even mentioned this last week. The great thing about Jalen Hurts and this Eagles team over the past few years is when they need to step up, they do. Like if you need them to put a drive together to take the lead towards the end of the game, they do. And in the same breath, if you need them to hold onto the ball to ice a game, they do. And I think that speaks I think the Chiefs electing to onside kick speaks volumes towards that, right? Because you look at it mathematically, right? There was 3 minutes left to go, no timeouts, but a 2-minute warning. Let's say the Eagles had a 3 and out. The Chiefs would have gotten the ball back with about 1:20 to go, just needing to get in field goal range to tie the game. So it would have made a lot of sense to just kick it off. But in my opinion, they weren't fully confident they would get the ball back. And that is why they elected to go for the onside kick. And so I think that really speaks volumes, because it just shows that it's gotten to a point now where other teams know if the Eagles get the ball at the end of the game and they just have to ice it, they are going to ice it.
Well, they also just put pressure on you with like how often the Eagles go for it on fourth down, where it's like that 3 timeout thing and stopping the clock. Like, you can't trust that versus the Eagles, because they give themselves 4 downs to get 10 yards, and they don't really make mistakes to push themselves back. Real quickly, we have some breaking news on the podcast. Jadeveon Clowney is going to take his talents to Texas, and he will now be a Dallas Cowboy for $6 million per year. So that's also more interesting. Why, when you saw Zadarius Smith got signed, you're thinking to yourself, like, why didn't they just go sign Clowney instead, the former number 1 overall pick in the draft, this, that, the other, athletic freak?
Forgetting he was the number 1 pick.
But, this seemed like it works out a lot better, and maybe the Cowboys, Jerry Jones is trying to take up where the Eagles left off from. But also, who did the Cowboys pay this week? They paid Tyler Smith and made him the highest paid guard in the league, so another Cowboys.
Yeah, they keep giving out big contracts while they, just refuse to give one to Micah Parsons. It really makes no sense at all. And you look at where that's put them, being that, they were barely able to get past the New York Giants today.
Yeah, the Giants actually look pretty good today. Malik Neighbors is a serious player.
Dude,
we learned
that
week
touchdown
last year
at the end, that was absolutely insane.
But real quickly about the Cowboys, I was thinking to myself.
Sorry, speaking of insane touchdowns, not to get off topic, but did you see the touchdown throw from Cam Ward today?
Yeah.
That was I've never seen somebody throw across their body like that, just for an absolute dot in the end zone. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, he's definitely a talented guy. Like, some people were a little bit skeptical about him, but about the Cowboys real quickly, then we'll transition back to the Eagles-Chiefs game. I'm thinking during the game, Cowboys-Giants, do I want the Cowboys to lose this game and then go 0-2 and then start to put in their brain that they need to transition everything so that they not only have 2 first-round picks, but one of them is their own, which will be an extremely high pick? Or do I want them to gut this out at the end, but like still be that 8-9 win team that just misses the playoffs, and then that forces them to have like their draft pick, which is like 18th overall, and then the Packers are just going to be really good this year, so that's probably going to be like the 28th pick or something like that. Like, how did you even like consider? Did that thought even register in your brain?
It's funny you bring that up, because I was thinking about that exactly. So when the Cowboys are playing, I'm always rooting for them to lose. However, every time the Cowboys have a bad season, I do always root for them to not be too bad.
Yeah.
Right. I always want them to be middle of the pack.
I'm always wanting them to win 6 or 7 games, personally.
Yeah. Like, and I was thinking about after they end up winning the game. Well, okay, I'm not mad about this at all, because it was a win against the Giants. This puts them at 1-1. I don't mind them continuing to win these games against these bad teams, as long as they keep losing the games against good teams and finish as a mediocre team, middle of the pack, without, having a top 10 or a top 15 draft pick, and that's something I kind of learned the hard way, because looking back at 2015, when the Cowboys won 4 games, I was laughing it up that whole year, getting hype over them being terrible, cracking jokes to Cowboys fans I knew. And then you go into the draft and it's like, oh shit, well, they have the number, or was this? Yeah, I think this was the 2015 season. Now they have the number 3 pick, I think it was, and they drafted Zeke Elliott, who ended up
the 4th pick.
Oh, the 4th pick. Okay, yeah, and they drafted Zeke Elliott, who ended up having who ended up being a total monster, but his prime did not last long at all. But either way, that it just made me learn. It's like, okay, I don't want them to be that bad, because I don't want them to get a huge impact player in the draft. I just want them to be mediocre, and I think that's what they.
I was a little nervous about that this year. This is the last 20 seconds, we're going to talk about the Cowboys. We got to get back on track here. But I was a little nervous with the 12th pick that they would get like one of those sexy skill position player type of guys. A lot of like one of that Arizona receiver if he fell past 8 to the Panthers, but he didn't.
Who did they get again? I don't even remember.
They drafted the offensive lineman from Alabama, Tyler Booker, the third.
Oh, right. Yeah. They like their Tylers. They love their Tylers on the offensive line.
Yes, sir. But
Smith, Booker.
Eagles-wise, Eagles, Chiefs, Dante, you really honest. I'm not trying to harp on you at all, but you really do your best to never say something negative. I need you to say a couple things negative about the Eagles because they did not.
I can easily do that this week. Kevin Patullo worries me.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually kind of got that out of you because I think Hurts, I'm not happy with his yardage. I don't think it's all to him because he's putting up lower passing yardage because I'm really not a fan of the play calling and some of the plays where he does hold the ball for too long, but there was a couple plays where he really had nothing to do and he couldn't really scramble to get yards. He just needs to get the ball out of his hands. I think on the last drive, he held the ball for like 5 seconds and threw a slant over the middle that ended up working to A.J. Brown, but the defender, the edge rusher, almost got home and strip sacked him without him paying attention. So he needs to get the ball out of his hands. But I think Kevin Patullo, like I said, Vic Fangio got the better hand of Andy Reid today. I think that was the same case on the other side, too. I think both defensive coordinators in this game beat the offensive coordinator outright.
The defense has won this game, on with both teams, and part of me is now worried that we're gonna see a repeat of 2023 where it's just bad offensive play calling the whole year. Granted, it's still only week 2. Patullo still has time to figure it out. I think the first 4 weeks of an NFL season are never really indicative of how the rest of the season is going to play out, and I think one of my favorite examples is 2021. Remember how good Sam Darnold and the Carolina Panthers looked at the first few weeks of that season, or last year with the New Orleans Saints, how they looked in the first 2 weeks. So, it's hopefully this isn't a sign that all year the play calling is going to be awful.
What was the year a couple years back? Didn't the Vikings start like 5-0 or something? Wasn't the Vikings, they missed the playoffs if they're starting 5-0?
Well, I know for a fact in 2016 they started 5-0 until they ran into Sammy Sleeves at the Link, and it was all downhill after that. I remember that.
So, I think that's what I might be referring to. But
I remember multiple seasons where the Seahawks or Steelers start off poorly in the first 4 weeks. The Bengals have started off poorly.
While we're talking about that, the Chiefs, we don't really focus too much unless it's like an NFC East opponent on our opponents when we review the games for the Eagles. But the Chiefs are now 0-2. That was something that kind of just like their Chiefs are 0-2 now. That's actually very interesting. And not only 0-2, they have a divisional loss out of their 6 divisional games already to the Chargers. So that actually might put them behind the 8 ball a little bit and make things interesting. There's only been 3 teams in the history of starting 0-2 that have made the playoffs that have even gotten to the Super Bowl after starting 0-2. So that's a very interesting.
And not only that, but this is the first 3-game losing streak in the career of Patrick Mahomes. And what's also funny,
but the funny part is why he's the second best player of all time. It's like, 3-game losing streak, first of the career, about to be 30 years old. One of them was just a Super Bowl, the third, like going to try to be a 3-peat. Like that's how good that.
It does. It does. Yeah, it does. It really does say a lot about.
Like this year might be the year where they not make it into the AFC Championship. Like, Mahomes just for the first time in his career hasn't made the AFC Championship. What a bum, you know what I mean? 8 years into his career, can't do it again.
But what I was going to say, the funny thing about that 3-game losing streak is he's lost to one quarterback twice in that 3-game losing streak, and that is Jalen Hurts.
Not only that, I don't even think that's the more impressive part. If we're just talking about they have to, everything has to go right for them to meet in the Super Bowl, which they've done the past 2 out of 3 years. But regular season wise, the past 2, that's 2 up on the Eagles regular season wise. In Arrowhead Stadium. In Arrowhead Stadium on the road, 2-0 the last 2 games in Arrowhead. So that's
Yeah,
very impressive in itself.
and overall, in the career matchup of Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts now has a 3-2 lead on Patrick Mahomes, winning his past 3 matchups against him. They are 1-1 in the Super Bowl against each other. Ergo, Jalen Hurts has gotten the better of Patrick Mahomes in his career thus far, which to me, it just feels so damn good to say. And
But I can't just act like Jalen Hurts right now is playing like a top 5 quarterback because he gets his team to win.
no, he's not.
Which
But
is the most important thing.
He's winning games though. He's winning games.
He's winning games. I'm not trying to harp on him or anything. I wouldn't want any other quarterback leading the Eagles right now because I don't think they're the team that they are without Jalen Hurts. But if we're analyzing the past 2 games to start this regular season, they have been a little bit disappointing for Jalen Hurts specifically, regardless of the play calling from Kevin Patullo. Would you agree?
I would agree. But what I would also say is, so outside of the fumble, there haven't really been many bad plays from Jalen Hurts in these 2 games. Like, for instance, last week, his only incompletions came from him throwing the ball away. And I think there was one other play that was like technically.
Well, he had 2 plays today. I don't know exactly if I blame them on him, but the one was that quick slant that got popped into the air for 3 seconds, and that should have been intercepted. Any other team pretty much is intercepting that ball. I think there's another pass that was a little close. I was sketched out about the Smitty down the field play on McDuffie because it was kind of a little wobbler. It ended up in the perfect spot though, so I can't even blame him. That was actually a really good throw.
What I want to say about that deep ball completion to Devontae Smith is that was not a great play by I'm not saying it was a bad play by Jalen Hurts. It wasn't a great play by Jalen Hurts. It was a great play by Devontae Smith. That was just a product of Devontae Smith doing an excellent job tracking the ball and boxing out his defender to go up and make the catch.
But doesn't it confuse you at times because Jalen, we know Jalen, and we've seen it before, especially in the more productive passing years. We know that he completely, with his entire life, trusts A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and even Dallas Goedert to an extent, and he will just throw the ball to him in double coverage regardless. But he's also hesitant to not turn the ball over, which feels like it slows the passing game down. But when he sees one of them going down the field, it's going. It does not matter. It's like Aaron Rodgers, like a gunslinger-esque. So it's like such a weird dynamic to where like
Rodgers also have a play like that today where he just flung the ball into the end zone and it got caught.
Yeah. I mean, that's just when you trust your guys, that's what happens. But it's just so weird because their passing game, like today, he has however many yards. Let me look at the exact yardage because it was like
101 passing yards.
Yeah, and he just got there with the Smitty pass at the end. He had like 63 for a long time. But he also had like a 40-yard pass mixed in that was like ended up being a huge chunk play in the pass game for the team. That was a pivotal play in the game. So it's not like they can't move the ball down the field. They have issues with their intermediate passing game. They don't really dump the ball off to the running backs. We saw a little bit more today, but they don't dump the ball off to the running backs. It's more so the tight ends, and Dallas Goedert wasn't there, so the tight ends didn't really get too much love besides that one play-action play to Granson that got them the first down of like 7 yards. But they don't really throw to Saquon that much as Saquon's used to being thrown to. And when they had Swift, they barely threw to him the way that the Lions threw to Swift when he was there. They don't really have a screen game. We saw it a little bit today, like they were trying to get it going. I tweeted about it.
That's when it felt similar to 2023.
But like they'll throw slants to AJ. He gains a little bit of yards. Sometimes they had the comebacks to AJ and the hitches. Smitty more so goes down the field. Sometimes AJ goes down the field, but Smitty's really their deep guy. Sometimes Dotson gets down the field. We've seen that in the past year since he's been on the team. He gets behind the defense a couple times, like the Jags game, like the Super Bowl, like last week, and he makes a play. But they either throw the ball 40 yards down the field to AJ or Smitty, or once in a blue moon, Dotson, throw the ball 10 yards to AJ, Dallas, or Smitty, or they just have no success in the pass game. There's like literally nothing else.
And on top of that, I think they focus on running it a bit too much. You know, like when they had.
Well, that's what I was saying. When they were the heavy favorites, when they were up 3 and they were still like minus over 10 times the money on the road with a 3-point lead versus a dynasty, I'm like laughing to myself. But you saw how that drive went after they got the ball back. It's just Saquon, which I'm cool with. but you know that's going to happen. But that's also why they put so much pressure on you as a team, because that's where it's like, that's where the game like isn't even in Kevin Patulu's like hands as the offensive play caller anymore. That's where like it seems like Sirianni takes over, and that's the identity of the team shows, and they're just going to come at you physically, and that's what it's going to be. So that shows that Sirianni still really has a huge grasp on the game, and it's the little subtle stuff too. Like you saw Jalen Hurts arguing with Sirianni when AJ Brown was like arguing, looked like he was yelling at somebody on the Eagles sideline, but it was really the ref about the last play. But Jalen was also yelling towards the sidelines, and he's asking Nick, like, why are we not going for it on fourth down here? And Nick's like, I'm not going for it on fourth down. There's no reason to. You can literally see him say that to Jalen Hurts on the sidelines as he's walking off. And then they clip. Hold on. I'm painting the entire.
I know, but I was in the middle of making a point, and then you started talking, and that's fine. But now you're starting to go on for a while. But I still want to finish what I was trying to say, which was, you know, when they got the ball back, and they were still up 10 before the Chiefs then got the ball and scored the touchdown. They were up 10. I think there was about 6 minutes to go, and they were up 10. And I felt at that point, this is where you keep your foot on the gas and you put the game away. But I felt like on that drive, the play calling was very, very conservative. They didn't really throw it, and they just ran, and ended up punting it away, which is when the Chiefs then ended up scoring and made it a 3-point game. So I think in a situation like that, I think, you know,
they didn't have any success in the passing game to do anything differently than that.
Well, but you have to, but you can't just say,
they
okay,
really have no success
to go. Let's start running out the clock. You still have it. You still have a game to win. You still got to get some first.
They literally had like 60 yards passing. Like they didn't even have they had like 6 first downs worth of first. They had literally 6 first downs worth of passing yards at that point in time. Like he had 22 attempts total. They like 22 attempts for Saquon as rushing attempts, and then 22 passing attempts from Jalen Hurts. And then 34 rushing attempts in general. I mean, they literally had nothing going on in that department. I mean, AJ catch the ball on a little slant or something.
To pick up first downs, just running the ball late in the game when the defense figures you're gonna run the ball anyhow. So you know it's not.
Well, they're just playing into their identity. That's where I said that's where Nick still has the grasp and the hand on the team. That's why what I was just saying with the point was before the half they showed the clip of Nick going over to Jake Elliott while he's practicing, like, you good from here? And he's like, yeah. And then he alludes to that, and then Jalen's like, why are we not going for it? And it's like, no, we're not going for it on fourth down. There's no reason to. There's not even enough time. And you can see him say that, and he trusts Jake, and then he throws Jake out there, and then it almost backfired on him because our long snapper, Charlie Hewitt, actually moved the ball too quickly and like false snapped the ball, and it was a false start, and it moved it from a 53-yarder to a 58-yarder. But this is where I'm going to tie in love to Jake Elliott, because last year he was 1 for 7 from 50 yards, and this year he's 3 for 3 so far from 50 yards.
Yeah, he's off to a great start. Now, we do have to move on in a second. So the one final thing I want to talk about the Eagles-Chiefs game is something that happened at the very end that everybody became aware to after the game ended. I thought a very funny moment was as Hurts was about to take the final kneel down, Chris Jones decided to start talking shit for some reason, saying, oh, you don't even have 100 yards. And Jalen Hurts said, we still won the fucking game, shut your ass up. And then took the final kneel down and got the W.
I wish Hurts would have referenced last week, but I know Hurts doesn't pay attention to the rest of the NFL. He's probably just literally only knows what's going on with the Eagles, but I wish Hurts would have said to him, weren't you the guy that lost contain on Justin Herbert and allowed him to rush for 35 yards on the last play of the game? Because remember last week, him and Drew Tranquil were yelling at each other on the sidelines because Chris Jones went inside instead of staying outside, and that's what opened up the lane for Herbert to go 40 yards down the field on 3rd and 14 to scramble for the first down. And then Chris Jones is trying to yell at him like, oh, I make $30 million, bro. I'm the best player on the team. Like, shut the fuck up. And it's like, bro,
Chris Jones is honestly a clown, bro. And so is I'm gonna say it, so is Travis Kelce. He gets on my nerves. I thought it was really funny watching him drop that catch that ended up being Andrew Makuba's first career interception. I mean, he's just one hell of a rookie so far. But anyway,
I don't know if it's real quickly. I don't know if it's the type of pressure. I don't know if they saw the tape of the Reed Blankenship hit from last week or what it is. But also, CD was doing that all last week, and CD is on pace to probably make the Hall of Fame too if he keeps up his numbers for the next 5 years. So, like,
absolutely.
Two
He's
Hall of Fame
never
level
won.
players just bobbling the ball in the Eagles secondary because I don't know what's going on, but it seems like something that's becoming like the norm now for some reason. But the Eagles looked good. Quinion got beat on that one play, but I think it was more so Reed taking the wrong assignment there, and then he had to wrap around that, which made it even a further path to get to the ball. And Thornton runs a 4-3, so that's just tough in general. But he did have that huge pass breakup too, that swatted pass on that one play. That was a big play in the game. And then Coop obviously comes up and makes so many good tackles, and he's so physical. That's why, like, we talked about the safety thing before, and it makes sense because he's such a good physical tackler. Maybe not the greatest coverage guy in space, one-on-one man coverage, and they've been running a lot of that. But if you put Coop near the line of scrimmage, he's one of the most impactful players on the defensive side in the entire NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is now time for my meatball of the week. And my meatball of the week this week is the Mets DJ, or whatever his position is technically called, because in a game, I think it was yesterday, it might have been the day before, the Mets gave up 4 runs in the first inning. And
It was
then
6.
It was six runs.
It was
in the
six.
first inning.
It was like 6-1. They got one back, but it was like 6-1 in the bottom of the second
Yeah,
inning.
but before they can even, and so after that half of the inning where they gave up 6 runs, the Mets DJ got on the mic and was like, "Everybody make some noise" or something like that. And it's like, dude,
Well, I think he was trying to he was trying to celebrate. Wasn't it Max Scherzer back? So he was trying to celebrate him as like a former Mets pitcher being back. I think that's what the situation was.
Oh, is that what it was?
It was like predetermined, but it was just horrible timing because they were already getting
Terrible timing.
smacked. So it was just really funny that it all played out like that. But yeah, and
But
they're just
speaking
an
of the
absolute
Mets,
atrocious mess right now. So
Speaking of the Mets, today was maybe the only time I've ever rooted for the Mets to win. And I'll explain why. And that's because, well, first I'll start off by saying,
hold on, you didn't let me. You cut me off because we talked about this, even though it's a new segment that we're going to be doing. But for
oh,
the
right.
football season,
Yeah.
we got the meatball of the day. And lucky enough for you, Dante, because I know you like the New York market, you being an Italian guy, like you really are not making too many friends with the New York market the way that you talk shit on the New York sports teams. And they're always your meatball of the week or the what's the deal segment. But lucky for you, this guy is also a New York athlete. I don't know if you watched the 1:00 game, Cowboys Giants.
I was watching Red Zones, so
okay, Cowboys Giants. If you're watching the 1:00 game, Cowboys Giants, I was at a loss for words. I'm sitting next to my dad watching the game. He's a 40+ year head coach in high school football, like so much experience in the football department. Even if you didn't have that type of experience, you can notice this. Dante, did you hear about the Giants tackle on the first drive of the game?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did see that.
4 penalties. 4 penalties on the first drive of the game. I cannot even like break that down to you how ridiculous. Like, we're talking about over the course of a game. That's horrific. This was literally an isolation of 11 total or 12, 13 total plays. Yeah. This guy did that to the point where he got benched and started freaking out on the sidelines. And it got to the point where they panted Brian Daboll on the first drive of the game, and he is freaking out, telling his offensive line coach that after this drive, it is absolutely done. So James Hudson, number 55, became a household name with how bad he was for the Giants offensive line. It's just comical.
That's a bad number for an offensive lineman. But yeah, and the Giants, that's a game they honestly should have won, in my opinion.
Well, they started the game off with 2 field goals because of those penalties from James Hudson. So they actually got like plays wiped off, like brought back 15 yards and still got the first down and credit for them. I think there was like a neighbor's catch and something else that happened like that because of those penalties. So they could have converted those to touchdowns, and then the game probably wouldn't have been as close as it was, and they would have won the game probably.
Yeah, but after the Malik Neighbors touchdown at the end, that's a game they should have won. However, we're now transitioning over to baseball. And so last week at the end of the podcast, Zach asked me, if the Phillies end up winning the series against the Mets, are we going to start the countdown to the magic number countdown? I said, absolutely. We almost entered this podcast today without a magic number, because we almost entered this podcast today with an already NL East champion Philadelphia Phillies. Of course, they swept the Mets. They won the first 2 against the Royals. the Mets lost yesterday, so all the Phillies needed to do today was win. They got destroyed thanks to Aaron Nola yet again, thanks to Topper leaving him in too long. But after the Phillies got destroyed, I was rooting for the Mets to win because I want the Phillies to clinch the division off of a win. I don't want to clinch the division because the Mets lost. That's so lame to me. So I'm actually really glad the Mets won so that we can save the possible clincher for tomorrow night against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Granted, it won't be as home, which isn't as cool. But hey, in 2022, they were in Houston when they clinched, and that ended up being one hell of a run after that.
That was Nola that did it, right?
Yeah, Nola is the guy who typically clinches every year, and this year he just couldn't get it done. And I think Topper left him in too
Do you
long.
think this is like really? Are we actually really watching the fall of Nola? Like, is this actually going to turn into like a really
absolutely.
big? Like, is this like is this what it is, or is it just this is like what's happening in the current moment, and like there's like
no, because
trying to reel in the cast of the rod. Like
he wasn't good last year either. He even had, a lot of time off this year because the injury. So, I thought maybe he would come back from the injury and start pitching better. No, he looked bad last year. He looks awful this year. I think this is definitely the start of the downfall of Aaron Nola, unfortunately.
Yeah, but like that's also why I'm asking you what you would think, because there's nothing that Rob Thompson would ever tell you in an interview that would like lead to that. Like he would never give you a hint that he even thinks that it would be, like with his even keel demeanor, which makes me mad at times, honestly.
Yeah, no,
he's like he's like, I'm not like, I'm different. I like to look at and just hold people accountable, a little bit more accountable than he does, and be more fair and be more honest than he is. I respect that he's chill to keep good and good vibes and good environment in the locker room and everything like that. But sometimes he needs to be way more assertive than he is, and I think that actually lacks in the attitude and the type of get up and the type of urgency that the team has at times is related to his demeanor, which he needs to uptick it at times. Not asking for him to be Gabe Kapler or anything like that, but I just feel like he needs to crank it on at times and defend his players a little bit more and put himself a little bit more out there. We've only seen it a couple times this year. We've seen him like blow up. I forget what happened earlier in the season, but there was like 2 times where he blew up over things. I think one of them was like the Bryce incident. And he defended Bryce, but like he needs to put himself out there a little bit more for his team in that department. And just as general, like if someone's not doing well, he's just a little bit too like, oh man, he's just going through the learning curves. I know he was hurt for a couple months,
Yeah, like look at how he treated the whole Jordan Romano thing.
It's like, ridiculous. Like he says he's either getting us a couple outs in a row and he's really good, or he gives up 4 runs. Like, bro, why are you still gambling on a lottery ticket as the main guy in your bullpen? Like, what is the case with that? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. But after the amazing week the Phillies just had, I don't want to talk about any negatives right now. What I do want to do is ask you a question, Zach.
What's that?
My question to you is: Harrison Bader the greatest Philadelphia Philly to ever step onto that baseball field?
I think Harrison Bader he's going to be one of those guys that like is here for a couple years, but he's like the dude, you know what I mean? Like he's like,
I would love it if he ended up staying past this.
I'm trying to think of different guys from different. I'm trying to think of a Sixers comparison I can make for him and an Eagles comparison I can make for him.
That is a good question. I would say Eagles comparison, if we're talking about a few years, I would say Asante Samuel.
No, because I can't put bro. Asante Samuel's like a borderline Hall of Famer. Harrison Bader's never making the Hall of Fame, bro. That's why Darius Slay popped in my brain, and then I was like, I can't disrespect Darius Slay.
Also, Slay was here for a while.
No, I actually was going to say, I feel like CJ is actually a good comparison for Harrison Bader.
Is a good comparison, but I wouldn't give Harrison Bader a little more credit.
And what about maybe like JJ Redick for the Sixers? JJ Redick was low key really good.
JJ Redick, that's a good one. Yeah,
it was like at 18. He was like the 4th option, and like that's what Harrison Bader's like working his way up to. Like I think Harrison Bader might be
and JJ Redick. That's a good
Harrison
comparison.
Bader, do you believe in Harrison Bader as like being the guy, almost like solidifying himself as the guy behind like Bryce, Trey, and Schwarber right now at the
Yeah.
current
Oh,
moment?
absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
even over Bohm,
I
Stott,
don't even have, yeah, I don't even have
Castellanos,
to think
and
about it.
JT, I feel like Bader is that guy right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never seen a player go on a run like this in terms of just getting hits every single game.
And he stepped up when they needed to too, because they had the two
Yeah.
injuries that they're dealing with as well. That like not only one, it's two. So that's actually been really hard. And Otto Kemp, shout out to my guy Otto Kemp. I think it was either last
He's
night.
been playing great. Listen, they've all been hitting well. Bader's been phenomenal. Harper's been hitting well lately. Schwarber has 2 home runs the past couple games. Marsh has been hitting great. Stott's been hitting great. Kepler, Kemp. I mean, they've all been hitting really, really well.
And it's all guys like it's like guys were like we didn't expect that from these guys before, but like before when they were rolling Johan Rojas out there every night, your favorite player of all time. When they roll him out there, it's like, all right, we know Johan's probably going to strike out twice and ground out and maybe get a hit, which is a single, maybe steal a base, but that's all the only offense he's ever going to give us. So that means Bryce, Schwarber, and Turner need to, be the best players on the field every single 162 game night that we put them out there. Like that's the pressure that I felt like was on the top 3. But now everybody's contributing and Turner's hurt, Alec Boehm's hurt, 2 all-star level players, and they're not even skipping a beat. They're actually closer to their end goal of winning the division again. So, I mean, regardless of what happened with the Braves this year, injuries and all that aside, the same could be said about the Mets. And, I mean, they signed the biggest free agent piece in all of baseball this past season.
Yeah.
And the Phillies are just the magic number 1 away from winning the division for a second straight time. So all that
and not only
bullshit,
that, but the Mets are in danger. The Mets are in danger of not making the postseason.
Well, yeah, that's what everybody wants to talk about. Oh, the Mets are more talented. The Braves are more talented. They got Acuna and Soto, which are younger and better than Bryce Harper and Schwarber and all those guys. But when all the smoke clears the past 2 years, who's winning the NL East?
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to take a look at the wild card standings right now, actually. The Mets have only a 1.5 game lead ahead of the San Francisco Giants. So they're definitely
Giants suck anyway. I don't even care. Like either team.
But also right there in the mix, you have the Diamondbacks who are 2 games back and the Reds are 2.5 games back. So those are 3 teams that could, possibly end up taking that final wild card spot.
Who would you be scared? Who would you be the most afraid of?
Out of those 3 teams, or just in the NL altogether?
Yeah, those specific 3 teams you just mentioned.
Definitely not the Reds.
I think the only answer is the Diamondbacks, guaranteed.
Yeah, I was about to say I would probably go with the Diamondbacks there, if I'm being honest. The Giants. Their big deadline move was Devers, who last I checked is having a bad season for the Giants.
Did you see what Phillies wise also? Did you see it kind of went viral like all around baseball? Like what is the John Boy Media like was even picked up on it? Did you see the comments that Walker Buehler made?
Yeah,
about the strike zone and the automated strike calling and everything.
Yeah.
I get what he's trying to say. It just didn't come out the way he was trying to say it. But I'm with him and I agree with him. But his wordage needed to be better because it just sounded like he was whining, but he was making sense. But like he needed to use better words to describe what he was trying to describe.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Because I get what he's saying as well. And when you look at it at that, it's a good point. But and I will, when they get rid of the when they add in the automated strike zone, I will always miss umpires getting calls right and wrong, and the kind of.
Did you see the one woman referee, Jen? I forget her last name. She has the worst correct call percentage of all time. It's like 90.7.
I saw that, but it's a sample size of only 3 games. And her first game was really bad. Her 2 games after that were actually pretty decent. So it was just the one game that's really holding down that whole percentage.
I just think anybody producing it like an almost error gap of 10% is just insane. That's just
that can't happen. But part of me is going to miss that. Part of me is going to miss umpires screwing up. Part of me is going to miss when it's a good thing for your team. You know, to me, it's just part of baseball. But I think ultimately we need the automated strike zone because it shouldn't make as big of an impact as it does at times. But part of me is just going to miss it.
Do you think it's comparable to making a pitcher hit as opposed to having a DH? Like, you know, a pitcher's really good at once in a blue moon do something for you. Do you think it's comparable to like that transition switch to where like an umpire's going to make a bad call once in a blue moon, but it's just the factor of the game. But now you have a DH in there who hits 50 home runs a game. It's going to be way better, and you have an automated computer system that's going to call strikes, so it's going to be way better automatically. But that human element is just taken out. Like, do you think?
I agree with that. Like that, and that's the thing. Like, both things are just better for baseball, but there's just something, you know, you're gonna miss about it. And but one thing I do want to get back to Harrison Bader for a second, and then I have a question to ask you, because the thing I want to get to about Harrison Bader is he was hitting really well. And then Trey Turner gets hurt. They put him in the leadoff spot. And since then, he's been like the best hitter in baseball. I'm wondering what happens when Trey Turner comes back. Now, I assume in the playoffs, obviously, Trey Turner will all but likely get his role back as the leadoff hitter. But if he comes back before the playoffs, I do wonder, you know, depending on how hot Bader is at the time, I do wonder if they keep Bader in the leadoff spot because, like, right now, like, let's say hypothetically Trey Turner is good to come back tomorrow night. Could you move Harrison Bader out of the leadoff spot with how hot he is? I would say no.
You just have to because of the threat that Trey is on the base pass. So that's interesting. But I was kind of pointing that question not directly, but indirectly with how good Bader's been playing now, being like that fourth guy. Where do you put him in the batting order? That's kind of where I was going with him being like now almost solidifying himself as the guy behind those top three guys. So the way I would do it is,
you know what
I would do here. Let me paint you. Tell me what you would tweak about what I would do. So one, I'm going Turner. Two, like playoff wise, like locked in. I need a win. Game 7 versus the Dodgers to get to the World Series. This is the lineup that I'm rolling out. This is what I would do. Turner 1, Schwarber 2, Harper 3, Bohm 4 if he's healthy, Bader 5. This is where it gets a little tricky. You can go either way. You can go JT or Castellanos 6 or 7. So those two guys. And then I have to have Stott as my last guy, as the lefty, as the 9 hole. And then you can fill in the blanks from there. So 6 through 8 is really interchangeable, but that's how I would work my lineup.
So I would go the more traditional lineup, the kind of lineup I used to see, you know, when we were kids, which is, you know, your first 2 guys are contact hitters. Then you have your all-around guy at the 3 hole and your power hitter at the 5. You know, that's kind of what we saw with like Rollins, Victorino, Utley, Howard. You know, you had your 2 contact hitters, Victorino, Rollins. Then you had your contact / power hitter of Utley 3rd, and then your power hitter of Howard 4th. So I think I would go Turner 1, Bader 2, Harper 3, and Schwarber in the cleanup. That's what I'm thinking.
I just don't think they would. I think they would just be more interested in keeping what's worked for them in the past and more so like gradually moving in instead of like adding a guy that they had at the trade deadline, even though he's performing really well, just throwing him into the 2nd spot. I feel like that's just.
But that's what I mean. That's how well he has been hitting. If you don't want to make drastic moves like that, however, then I think I would agree with putting Bader at 5, but also part of me really likes Schwarber in the 2 hole. So maybe I would.
Well, that's why like Schwarber, I don't want to move him back. I need Schwarber to get
Bader and then Harper in the cleanup. I would also.
I feel like it's like my 5 hole has to be JT, Castellanos, or Bader, but Bader's winning the race out of JT and Castellanos.
Oh well, Bader's demolishing that race. You know.
Well, I'm just saying, like I like Harper, Turner, and Schwarber have to be 1 through 3. in some variety or 4 because they have to get the most at bats in the playoff game. They cannot be anywhere further down the lineup and not be getting those at bats.
But putting somebody in the 4 spot, it's not like moving them down in the order. That's putting them in the cleanup spot. That's a great spot to be in the lineup.
I know, but it always seems like I like having Stott at the 9 hole because I want to be able to produce.
I have no problem with Stott in the 9 hole. I never said don't keep Stott in the 9
hole.
No,
I'm just saying that's why I like that because I feel like the order doesn't really get back around there. Like you catch yourselves in those spot where you're in the 9th inning and you're down a run and it's the 9-1-2 up. And like I need somebody that like used to be a cleanup hitter is just cleaning up just in a different type of role for it. You know what I mean? I need that like a little bit of juice at the end of my lineup to be able to produce. Yeah,
but now there is one thing I wanna play a little game here with you, Zach. So I'm gonna name 2. What's that?
The Quentin Grimes game?
No, we actually will talk about that after this. But before we get to Quentin Grimes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to name you 2 former Phillies who are still in the league. I'm going to ask you who you think currently has the higher WAR. And then I'm going to read you the stats of both these players. And you're going to either change your answer or stick with it. So before I share with you their stats, and I know you kind of have a general idea on what their stats are looking like.
I can already name you the 2 players you're going to ask me about. I already know one. I know for a fact I know one of their names. The other one I'm speculating.
Well, who are the 2
I know you're talking about Cody Clemens. I know you're talking about
Cody. He is one of them. He is one of them.
And my other guesses, but you haven't been keeping tabs on them like I have, so I think I might be wrong about this, but Mickey Moniak would be the other one.
Those are the 2 players. It's Cody Clemens.
Okay, so I was correct. I already knew which 2 players you were talking about.
Which player currently has a higher WAR? Take a guess.
Higher WAR?
Higher WAR.
Well, it's somebody that's like slightly more, not significantly because both teams suck that they play for, but slightly impacts winning more because he's on more of a winning team is Cody Clemens.
Okay, now let me read you their stats. And maybe you'll adjust. But starting with Cody Clemens, he currently has 19 homers, 50 RBI. He's batting .220 with a .287 on base percentage, .460 slugging, and an OPS of .754. He has 3 stolen bases, been caught stealing once. I don't know if that really.
How many wins do the Twins have right now?
The Twins have
like
65 wins.
65?
65 wins.
Which is like slightly better than the Rockies.
Yeah.
Rockies probably had like 57 or something.
So next is Mickey Moniak. Same amount of home runs, 19. More ribbies, 57. Batting average of .261. On base percentage of .299.
Oh my goodness, yo. The Rockies really have 41 wins right now?
Yeah,
oh my God. That is really crazy.
They're really bad.
Wait, hold on for a second. Hold on for a second. I want to cut you off. You keep going. I just have to look this up real quick because, like, bro, what's the least amount of wins, like, in MLB history?
It was the White Sox last year.
Yeah, it was like, wasn't it like 40 or was it like 38 or something?
I think it was 41 exactly.
So if they don't win another game, they tie the record for the worst team.
Yeah, but they'll win at least. They'll win another game. Anyway, going back to Moniak. So he's got the same amount of home runs, 19. He's got 57 ribbies, which is more. Batting .261, .299 on base percentage, .489 slug. At a .788 OPS, 7 stolen bases, 3 caught stealing on a team with 41 wins. Who has the higher WAR?
Well, you just told me the answer, which I just don't understand how it makes sense because I know Moniak's really not a good defender. So I don't know how he would have a higher.
Final guess, Cody Clemens.
Well, though you already like revealed the answer by accident to me in the beginning because I said Cody Clemens. I would assume because his team's better that he would have a higher WAR because his team wins more.
Yeah, and then I didn't give you an answer off of that.
You said that you might after these stats, you might change your answer, is what you said.
No, I'm saying that was the game, right? Is I'm going to tell you the two players, you're going to take your guess, and I'm going to give you the stats, and we'll see if that changes.
All right, then with that being said, I didn't even want to change my answer in the beginning, so I'll just stick with it. And Cody Clemens has the higher
so
WAR.
Cody Clemens has a 1.1 WAR. Mickey Moniak is -1.
Yeah, because his defense is so atrociously bad.
Yeah. But that's what I mean though, is Mickey has the same amount of home runs, more ribbies. He has a much better slash line. I wouldn't say much better because Clemens' slash line is awful. But Moniak's is definitely better.
So where would the Phillies be if they still had Moniak and they still had Logan O'Hoppe as two guys that like are decent bats and can produce a little bit, but are really, really, really bad defenders at their position? Like,
I don't think they would be making much of a positive impact.
Imagine like Bohm's like the same thing, but he's like just like an all-star level hitter, but still like just like a little bit of below average on defense. So they'd just be out there scoring like fucking 8 runs a game and giving up like 9 or whatever with their bullpen.
But speaking of getting rid of those two guys at the deadline. And this is actually the final thing I'll say about the Phillies tonight is, when they trade for Yohan Duran, at first I was like, oh, this is great, but I am upset we just had to trade Eduardo Tate. And then after the first time we saw Duran come out of the pen, I was like, nope, worth it. Now, like looking back, I'm like, why did I even give a shit? Like Duran is that fucking good that it's just like it doesn't matter. Duran is he's so good, dude. And
like I don't really think it's going to be one of those Yankee or Dodgers situations where it's like Onel Cruz they gave up and then Ellie or whatever, like one of those types where like the Padres where they gave up Juan Soto and they gave like 2 of the best core minor league players in the entire MLB that blossom into good players in Abrams and the other dude Wood to the Nationals for a rental. But yeah, also craziest part. So Colorado having 41 wins, they need 1 more to escape the possibility of being the worst team ever. But all those worst teams that I've looked up each season like varies between how many games there is. So they treat it by winning percentage. So right now the Rockies have a winning percentage of 273. And last year, Chicago finished the season with 253. So if they don't win another game, they'll tie with the same record and the same win percentage as 253. So 150 games, they would have to go on a 12-game losing streak for them to tie that record. So, and then I guess it would come down to, if that's what it came down to, it would come down to the stat column to determine who the worst team ever is, like who allowed more runs and who scored more runs and like that.
Yeah,
and like pitching ERA.
However, I would argue if the Rockies do go on a 12-game losing streak to tie it, I would say that in itself.
Wait, I got something real. I have a quick stat. So if it does come down to that, so we just have like a ballpark range here. Hold on. I'm gonna look up the run differential for the White Sox last year. Oh man,
you can just go by run differential.
So the run differential for the White Sox, worst team ever last year, was -306. Bro, the Rockies is -397 right now.
That's insane. They're gonna.
They might actually. It might not even matter
with a run differential of more than -400.
They might actually like on paper, not percentage wise, finish as the worst team ever. But if their run differential is like 60 more than the White Sox, and they only win like 3 or 4 more games, they're the worst team ever.
Let me see something, and then we'll talk about Quentin Grimes. What is the worst run differential in MLB history? Oh my God! Okay, well, this was an 1899 team.
Yeah, I'm not counting anything. When Babe Ruth was playing baseball, that's when I'll start counting stuff.
Okay, well, okay. So you know what? This is interesting. Speaking of that, so the worst total is the 1899 Cleveland Spiders when they had a run differential, of -723. Now,
723.
-723.
How could you even be that bad?
But here's where it gets interesting. The worst run differential in the modern era since 1900 is the 1932 Boston Red Sox with a run differential of minus 345. Ergo, this Rockies team will finish the season with by far and wide the worst run differential in MLB history. So
Yeah,
yeah,
look at this. Yo,
actually,
I
you
got
know
the
what?
worst. I have the worst run differentials up here, and the Rockies are listed 2025 with minus 397. There's no other team inside the top 13 that is from even the 1900s. These are all 1800 teams. There's not a team from the 1900s that is literally. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah, I'm
a
looking at it now.
125-year gap between that. And then the crazy part is Dante, the 2023 Athletics minus 339 point differential.
Oh my god. Yeah, and that's just and you know what's funny? And I say this unironically, you have Sam Hinkie to thank for that. You have Sam Hinkie to thank for that because what he did in the NBA changed tanking around all sports, and now this is what teams do. They go
Well, you
full
know the rule.
blown
Are
tank.
you aware of the MLB draft rule?
Yeah, yeah, they added a draft lottery.
Yeah, where like a team that like can't qualify for the lottery or something if they've like done it for the past 2 to 3 years. So like the worst team in I think last year, I think they one of the top worst teams couldn't even get their top pick anymore because they've qualified for it too many times in recent memory, which is pretty
Yeah,
crazy to think
yeah,
about.
and that is all a result of Sam Hinkie. And I say that so unironically. I say it so unironically. He changed professional sports when it comes to rebuilding and
Well,
tanking.
basketball, like when you do it with basketball, it's so drastic because there's only five starters on the court.
Yeah.
So like it's so drastic when you do it in basketball and it impacts it so much. It's just like that's where people that's where basketball gets ruined, and like basketball gets ruined as a sport professionally because of those little loopholes of like how much players dictate the league and stuff, and like the decisions of some teams and like the way that they go about like operating for like a particular single season with other factors involved. Like that's where people say I can't even watch the NBA, but like it's not basketball, it's literally the format of the NBA that they hate because they love college basketball, but like when it gets to all that little tanking and just like predetermined results that the NBA teams pull, it's a bunch of BS. So I'm not a
Well,
big fan of it as well.
speaking of NBA, let's talk Quentin Grimes.
Quentin Grimes, we finally got a little bit of news. The Sixers, we were wondering how the roster was going to fill out. We've had a little shtick going on with the podcast about talking Quentin Grimes news if we get it. And we finally actually did get some news. There was a report that they could look to move Kelly Oubre or Andre Drummond or both in order to try to sign Quentin Grimes back. But, I mean, this is like trickled over into crazy territory, Dante. Today's the 14th. Hold on one second.
Yeah, today's the 14th. We're getting very close to the season. However, at least we have some, we have a news update on it. For the past month, we've just heard absolutely nothing, no rumblings, nothing at all. But now at least we have an update where the Sixers, they're trying to bring him back. I don't want to trade away Kelly Oubre to make that happen. I wouldn't mind trading Andre Drummond because I really like Bona as much as I do like Drummond. If I have my pick between trading Kelly Oubre or trading Andre Drummond, I would trade Andre Drummond in that situation.
So September 24th, we're 10 days away from training camp starting, and they have a guy that last year, I don't know how like compared to a guy on the Eagles and the Phillies, how important is Quentin Grimes essentially? Who would you say he is?
Ooh. Let me think about that. I would say if you want to look at the 2017 Eagles, I would say he's
I'm talking about current roster.
Yeah, but I know, but I can't really think of a current guy on the Eagles as a good comparison. So 2017 Eagles, I would say if you're looking at defense, a guy like Rodney McLeod. or if you're looking at offense, I would say a guy like Torrey Smith or maybe even Jay Ajayi. If you're
I
looking,
want
I
current.
guess if
I want current.
All right, current.
I know it's tough for the Eagles. I feel like the Eagles
It's
is
tough for
locked
the
up with-
Eagles current because they haven't done anything on offense. So it's tough to think
Well,
of
like obviously most of their
I
teams
would
the
say
same from last
Goddard,
year.
maybe
I
Goddard.
was gonna say Goddard, but I feel like that's a little disrespectful to Goddard because he has been with the Eagles for a while. Like Quentin Grimes
Yeah.
new, but it's like similar production scale. I was actually gonna equate it to like Landon Dickerson, who's a way better player than Quentin Grimes is at football to basketball, but like the impact of a left guard to somebody that can get you 18 at any time to the NBA is different. So
I would say that's a good comparison.
because like you can replace offensive linemen, they still have all pro offensive linemen with Cam and the two tackles and Lane and Mayada. But at the end of the day, if they lose Landon Dickerson, it is an impact. And if they lost Quentin Grimes, it would be an impact to their scoring department specifically. So I feel like that might be a little bit more comparable.
Or maybe on defense, although he trusts
like Nakobe Dean.
Maybe a guy
Nakobe
like
Dean.
Darius Smith.
I don't know. I feel like Nakobe Dean might be a little bit more comparable for Quentin Grimes.
Maybe
Baseball-wise, I feel like it might be maybe JT or Harrison Bader, honestly. Like, because JT randomly really goes off.
Right now, with the way Harrison Bader's playing right now, I would say, Harrison Bader is definitely making a bigger impact than Quentin Grimes will.
Well, I mean, Quentin Grimes was dropping like 40.
I would say Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh maybe is a good comparison.
Yeah. Also, while we're making comparisons.
And if you're looking at the 08 Phillies, Pat Burrell. He's Pat Burrell.
I don't know. I feel like it'd be like Victorino, honestly.
Pat Burrell.
Pat Burrell was also like a top dog back in the day. Like, he was the number one overall pick. But
Pat the bat.
While we're making comparisons before we get out of here, I felt like when I was watching Andrew Makuba today, it just like reminded me of Malcolm. Like the way that he was just always around the ball and always making a play. That's
a bigger hitter than Malcolm.
I mean, he also got completely trucked too. That's why you were gassing him up the whole time. But he did have a couple low lights in the game too. He got trucked by Mahomes for a first down, but obviously played really well. But that he just reminds me of Malcolm Jenkins, where the defense is like holding their own. They're giving a little bit of ground, and then like he's just the guy that always comes out of nowhere to make a play and just make something happen when it seems like the clouds are kind of overcasting. So,
yeah,
really
one final thing I will say about Andrew Makuba. I feel like with the last name Makuba, we need a good nickname for him. I've seen online.
Well, we need to first off stop calling him Andrew because he goes by Drew Makuba, and that's what everybody was calling him.
Anyway, I saw online a nickname for him, Mukbang. I don't like that nickname.
Mukbang?
A nickname I would like.
I like that name. Why do you not like that name? I feel like that's actually a good name.
I think that's stupid. A nickname I would like, and I feel like it's so obvious, Makuba Matata. Makuba Matata. I feel like it's obvious. Makuba Matata. And it's kind of a callback to the days of D'Amico Ryans when we would call him Mufasa, and then Jordan Hicks came along and we called him Simba.
I was actually trying to find if I could find the offensive or the defensive rookie of the year awards, because I feel like he has to be top 3 right now.
Yeah.
But they haven't locked. They haven't locked on the game because the Falcons are playing the Vikings right now, and the Falcons have 2 first-round pick defensive players on their team playing. So I think that's why they have.
Yeah, I'm watching that game right now. It is a defensive battle. And the Falcons have 12 points. That reminds me of a certain game against the Eagles. But that's going to be it.
Yes, sir. That will wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 114 of the Paisan Sports Podcast. Next week, Eagles, Rams, 1 o'clock. Yeah, back at the link. You know what it's on. Eagles 3.5-point favorites. The Rams looked pretty good today in their game. They pretty much handled business the entire time. I think the final score ended up being 33-19, like it was for quite some time. Let me get the exact score for you. Yeah, it was 33-19. You said you watched a little bit of the game because you saw the Cam Ward touchdown pass.
Yeah, I just caught some stuff on Red Zone.
Yeah, so the Rams were a good team. Devontae obviously went off today. Puka did his thing as well. They even got that one dude. Remember a couple years ago, Jordan Winningham was supposed to be like the big next fantasy guy, and he kind of just got lapped by Puka and some of the other guys that were there, like Tutu Atwell. but he even had a big catch today. That just shows how well Matt Stafford was playing and is playing currently. And we talked about Matt Stafford actually being somebody that almost left the Rams for the Giants in the offseason, but also being banged up going into the season. So that doesn't seem to be a factor. Both teams 2-0. Obviously, the Eagles and Rams have actually played like the past, 3 or 4 regular seasons in a row and in the playoffs. So last year in the regular season was in LA, but the year before, I think they played like week 5 and it was in Philly. And they obviously played in the playoffs last year, close game. So they know each other really well. Maybe this is the game where Jalen Carter finally gets going, because obviously he didn't play week 1 this year because of the incident. If that would have happened any other point in the game, not before the first play, he would have been suspended for 2 games, which that would have been the rest of the Cowboys game and the next week. But since he never played a snap in the Cowboys game, that was the considered game that he got suspended for. And we know he made the huge play last year in the playoffs. So maybe this is what gets him going. But yeah, I remember before that game, Jared Verse was talking, and then Jalen Carter went up to him and kind of said something to him. And then Jalen Carter got the better hand at the end with that huge play. So maybe this is like a rivalry revenge game for Jalen Carter for to get him going, because we have yet to see the Eagles' best defensive player make an impact really on the season yet.
Yeah. So we'll see.
With that being said, Eagles Rams next week. We'll have a review after the game. Obviously, we'll do the podcast Sunday night like we always do, that we have since the football season started. Baseball. Magic number, Dante, you already said it. It's 1. So we'll have a review on the magic number and if the Phillies can get it done. And if we're talking,
obviously they'll get it done before next week's.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If the Phillies, for whatever reason, don't get it done, then we'll have a lot to talk about, because that'd be
but that would also mean the Mets go on an insane win. That would mean it's not possible. It's not.
We
possible.
watched the Phillies do it to the Mets back in the day. It would only be right for it to just reverse us.
The Phillies will have the division clinched by next week's podcast.
I mean, we watched it happen like, what was it, 07 or 08 when we flipped the script on them. So if they flip the script on us and do it this time, then I would just be really salty about it. But yeah, we'll be celebrating the NL East title, hopefully. And lastly, Sixers, Quentin Grimes. Maybe a week before training camp will be September 21st, 3 days before training camp, the 24th when they start. Maybe we'll have a little update if he's on the Sixers roster or not. But thank you guys for tuning in to episode 114 of the Paisan Sports Podcast, and we'll see you guys next Sunday. Peace.